Hey guys, welcome to the Golden Series. If you're new to my channel, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications. So today's video is gonna just be like conversational, I guess. Like, since I gave my life to Christ, like I went through many different transitions. I gave my life to Christ in like 2019. It's 2023. So it's been like, basically almost 4 years since I've been in Christ. Almost 4. I feel like a lot of times it's hard for Christians to be real about how their walk with Christ is going. It's really easy to just make it seem like when you come to Christ, like everything is just like amazing. Your life, you're glowing, you're happier. You have like this holier, you have this holier than thou complex. Like you're just like living your best life in Christ, right? And granted, like, coming to Christ, like your life definitely does change. You definitely have a glow up. Your old self, your old man dies, and you begin to live a new life through Christ, right? Which is way more radiant than who you were when you were living a life of sin. However, there's a lot of ups and downs that come with this walk. Like, it's not just lilies and dandies and rainbows and sunshine. You actually have to go through the process of killing your flesh and dying to yourself, which is a process that I feel like people in their walks don't talk about, as frequently, because it's not the most cutest part of your walk. But dying to yourself, dying to your flesh is one of the most important processes in your walk with Christ. Why? Because when you die to yourself, that increases the glory of God on your life. So even with Jesus, like Jesus could not, like, yes, Jesus knew that he was going to die and he knew how painful it was going to be. But at the end of the day, the glory that he knew that was going to come upon him after he died on the cross, like it was the glory and the anticipation of the glory that he was going to experience was so much more enjoyable and so much more pleasurable than his current condition living in the flesh. So I'm saying this to say that as a Christian, dying to yourself, dying to your flesh is what allows you to experience and encounter what it really feels like to be Christ-like. So when you first give your life to Christ, you have like this fire, like, oh my gosh, like I love Jesus, right? I love Jesus for sure. But at the end of the day, after a while, you start to get hit like Jonah. After a while, you start to get hit like Job. You start to really get hit like David. Like you start to really go through heavy hitting situations where everything that you read in the word, that it's so easy for you to go on Instagram and preach about and go on Instagram Live and talk about, God actually puts you through a season where you go through those situations that you found so easy to preach about all the time, right? So I found myself going through a season of dealing with what I was preaching, what I was sharing on social media. I went through a season where I actually had to go through those things. Like, I know a big thing that I used to always talk about was letting God refine you, right? Lord, like, whew. Lord, like, when you ask God to refine you, you really get thrown into the fire. You get thrown into the fire, for real. My identity in Christ was a big thing that God had to put through the fire. And it was something that it would be so easy for me to talk about it. Like, your identity is rooted in Christ. You need to know who you are. If you don't know whose you are, then you're going to be confused. You have to allow your foundation has to be in Christ. It's so easy to say until you realize that your identity was faulty, that the foundation that your identity was on was actually not really a solid foundation, right? So the season God took me through, he literally put my identity through the fire, and everything that was artificial literally got burnt in the fire. They say that fire burns every chaff. So every single chaff, every single artificial thing that could have been holding up my confidence was thrown in the fire, right? And that really came from having people just criticize me, right? When you get criticized, that's when you really, that's a big test to see how strong your confidence and identity really is rooted in Christ. Because if your identity and confidence is strong and people even come and criticize you, you cannot be moved. And it's the same principle that applies, like, if you build your house upon a rock and a wind comes and fire comes and all of these storms come, because it's built on a rock, it'll be solid. You won't move. But when it's built on a sandy foundation, a little comment, a little criticism can easily knock you off foot and literally put you in a place of like, whoa, who am I, right? So those were some heavy hitting things that was being thrown at me in a particular season of my life, where I was just being criticized for my walk with Christ. Like, comments were being made towards me that felt very like hurtful, like, yeah, just a lot of misrepresentation, a lot of misunderstanding, like not being understood by people completely. So yeah, like a lot of these comments just would be very hurtful. But what I realized God was doing was he was showing me where my foundation was faulty. He was showing me where my identity wasn't rooted in him, and how to actually build up a stronger foundation, that when people come at me sideways, or when people say things about me or try to tell me things about me that aren't true, then I have a solid foundation so deep in Christ that it won't throw me off balance. And the truth is, like, God cannot take you to high places. He can't take you to more influential places if it's so easy for someone to just knock you off track. If it's so easy for a comment to just take you out of your walk with Christ. If it's so easy for offense to even get you out of church. Like, how can he take you to a place of influence when every little thing makes you just like fall? So there's gonna come a season in your life where God will literally allow people to criticize you. God will allow people to just talk down on you, only to build up your identity to be strong, like to be very, very strong. You want your identity to be so strong that when people try to come to you and even try to call you, say that you're a Jezebel, or say that you are fake, you're faking your walk, or blah, 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 blah. Like, you know who you are so deeply in Christ that those comments are just seen as like nothing to you. Like literally a wind. Yeah, I would definitely say like that was the season I was going through, and it was a hard journey, but it was very satisfying to see the transition of how it looked like to get rid of that old foundation that I thought was so secure and actually come into a more mature, secure foundation in God, being secure with myself and who I am, and knowing that at the end of the day, what people say about you really has nothing to do with you. And the truth is, if the Lord, who can declare something over your life that the Lord has not said? If the Lord has not said it, then it cannot come to pass. And I got to a point where like my confidence was just so much more rooted in Christ that I didn't care if somebody didn't like me. I didn't care if someone had a negative comment, because at the end of the day, God will fight my battle. God will truly fight my battles, and I've seen God fight my battles time and time and time and time again. For real, God will literally fight your battles. So anytime there's people with an opposing view towards you, around those same people, God will lift you up. If you truly humble yourself and you allow God to just be the God of vengeance, to just be the God that speaks over your life, then all you have to do is sit back, rest in God, and he will literally lift up your head. And it won't even be done in a way where you have to open your mouth and say like, God is doing this, and like, God, your works, your actions, like everything that he will display in your life will speak for itself, to the point where all you have to do is sit back and watch God just show out in your life. Like, people will see it. They'll see the change. They'll see the transition. You don't have to do anything, for real. So I think that just yes, it was a hard process because my identity was tested. But at the end of the day, it made my identity and my foundation in Christ even stronger, because now I know that I have heaven's backing. I have God backing me at all times, which is great. It feels so good to know that God is backing you. Like, if people try to talk about you, God is backing me. At the end of the day, God will back me some way, somehow. So, at the end of the day, you just have to know that God will back you. God will not allow you to go through a process of your identity or your name just being scrutinized without over time allowing those same people to see him glorify you at the end of the day. And God is not a man that he shall lie. If he has spoken certain things over your life, it must come to pass. And nobody can tell you, nobody's words or nobody's actions can get you out of your place of alignment. Nobody's resistance can take you out of the destiny, can't take you out of your destiny seat. Like, nobody could do that. Nobody could do that. It doesn't matter how many people want to oppose that for you. Like, it's not possible for you to be kicked out of your place of destiny unless you're just being disobedient. But yeah, he will literally lift you. He will lift you. He will lift you. He will lift you. He will lift you. And as he lifts you, he'll also just strengthen you at the same time. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is just to encourage you, like, if you're in a season where your identity and your confidence and you're just being put through the fire, just hang on and just know that the Lord is everything that the Lord has started in you, he will bring to perfection. He is bringing to perfection, and it's not over yet. It's just going to be a testimony and a story. And it's just like, everything God does is to just solidify and strengthen your foundation in him. Like, he disciplines those he loves. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So if you guys like this video, if you guys want more videos like this, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe, turn on your post notifications, follow all my social media handles, gold.aleka Instagram and the Golden Series on TikTok. So yeah, love you guys. See y'all in the next video. Peace.